Coming up next on the Breadwinning Mums.
Gold is a person who is self-starter, somebody who drives all the time and says, how can I improve? What can I do? Sure, I'll talk to you about what you can do, but my focus is what I can do better. Your bronze are people who basically will listen to you. They're the people that you can coach and help, and sometimes you can help them to become gold. And then you have your leads, and the leads are the ones that won't listen, because everything that goes wrong is not their fault, so they never change.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Breadwinning Mums podcast. This is a place where we debunk the myths of working mums, cheer each other on, and show the world that you can be a mum and still pursue excellence in your chosen area of expertise. Today we are chatting with Dr. David James Penman, or Jim Penman, the founder and owner of Jim's Group, the largest franchise chain in the Southern Hemisphere. Jim shared his life story about building his business empire, finding a worthwhile purpose in his life, and how meaningful struggle remain as an essential part of his life. I am sure you'll find lots of wisdom in this conversation with Jim Penman. Dr. David James Penman, welcome to the Breadwinning Mums podcast.
Yeah, well, those are the two things I don't normally get called, Doctor and David.
Exactly.
Technically, I have a PhD, but I don't use it very much outside academic circles.
Exactly. I do want to ask though, what should I call you? David?
Jim.
Okay,
Jim.
Perfect. All right.
Jim.
Jim, you're a man who needs really no introduction, especially in the Aussie circle. A lot of people know you from Jim's Mowing, Jim's Group, and people can actually see your face on every suburb.
Oh, some version of it, yes.
Some version of it, correct. You're younger then with beard and bucket hat. But can you tell us a little bit more about yourself? Who are you as a human, Jim?
Well, that's a good question. I'm a husband who is very devoted to his wife and my 10 children. So that's probably. I'm also a practicing Christian. That's important. I'm somebody with a mission, with several missions. I started doing. I went to university in 1971 with the aim of trying to understand the reasons for the rise and fall of civilizations. Come up with a theory that I think explains it fairly well and also says what you can do about it. And I've spent 36 years developing a franchise system so I can fund that research.
Yeah, that is awesome. And that's just one of your missions in life, I guess.
Yes, yeah. My mission. I mean, I have three missions. My franchisees. I'm very devoted to them. 5,500 my franchisees. I'm devoted to my family. I'm devoted to my research mission. Yes, all important.
Yep. Excellent. There's a lot there in your story, but I want to take it bit by bit, I guess. I want to take us to the young Jim. What was he like?
Totally obnoxious. Oh, Jim hasn't changed that much either. Very, very socially blind. I could say a lot of things that offend people. I don't have very good social cues. My wife says that I've got borderline Asperger's, so it's very, very impatient of authority, very willing to be different to anybody else. I was a very, very militant agnostic before I became a Christian, and I changed I change sides. That's typical me. I would always, even at school, I would always the one who would go the negative. I would, whenever anyone could say, I could always think of the opposite reason.
Yeah.
I went to a conservative school, and I was got into quite a lot of trouble by challenging, putting up views that were not very conventional in that environment. I
Yeah.
was very sort of anti-religious and had very forthright views on a lot of moral issues and stuff, which I would totally disagree with now. But my best friend was suspended and told to stay away from me. So it's a bad influence on him. So yes, difficult, argumentative, contrary.
Yeah. It sounds like the perfect breeding ground to make a founder, successful founder.
Yes, you're quite right. What we've done at Jim's is very similar. My research, I wanted to be an academic. My research was so unconventional that it just torpedoed any possible chance of an academic career. But the same extreme unconventionalities worked okay in business terms. Because in
Yeah.
business, you don't have to get people to agree with you. You just have to show that what you're doing is working.
Correct. Yeah. That is awesome. Let's take us back to that young Jim's mowing before it became a group. You started with a $24 lawnmower, and you were just trying to put yourself through university at the time. Could you tell us a little bit more about that journey?
Well, basically, I started off when I've done gardening since I was 8 years old. There's a neighbour across the back fence, Mr. Tapley. I used to go in and he paid me 2 shillings, which is 20 cents. Even in those days, it wasn't a lot of money to go and rake his driveway. So I've been doing gardening virtually all my whole life in some sense. When I left school, I took a gap year, and part of that gap year, I put a notice in the local hardware store offering to do work. I think it was $1.50 an hour in those days, so that wasn't very expensive either. Got a few jobs, kept them going, and as I went through university, I decided to up that a bit. So I wanted to get a car, so I decided to start mowing lawns because it made me a little more money. So I could charge, instead of charging by the hour, I could charge by the job, which was originally $5 per lawn. Which you can do 2 lawns in an hour. That's $10 an hour, which is pretty good. I was even able to buy a house when I was a student, which you couldn't do these days because houses were a lot cheaper in those days. And so that continued. And so what happened in 1982 basically was that my academic career had come to a crashing close. I was actually $35,000 in debt. I lost anything. I did some very stupid things. And so that's when I started. $24 was actually the letterboxes.
How old were you at 1982?
Or I mean, 30.
30. Okay. So that was quite the steep learning curve, both as a business person, as
Yeah.
an academic, but also just as a 30-year-old. What was it that created the whole domino effect, do you think, looking back now? Was it just personal choices, or was it the business itself, or was it the academia?
Well, they're all a reflection of the character, Jane. Basically, look, I didn't think this mowing business was going to end up with anything. I knew I wanted to make a lot of money because you've got to provide a multi-million-dollar research foundation. You've got to get money from somewhere. I didn't think lawn mowing was going to be it. I tried a lot of different things. I tried a computer shop, a mower shop. I tried Amway. I tried all kinds of stuff. A tourist venture, which was a terrible failure. I just tried a whole lot of different things. But I do have one habit: is when I'm doing something, I'm very obsessive about improving it. So when I'm mowing a lawn, I'm trying to work out all the time the best way to do it. How can I do it quicker? How can I do it better? How can I do an absolutely perfect edge with the
Mm,
minimum amount of time? How can I amaze my clients? How can I cut my time down in traveling? Best equipment, best everything. I always obsessively focused on trying to improve. And it's
mm.
just very strange when you start off with a little part-time lawnmower business and you just say, okay, how can I improve? How can I improve? You end up with, something quite substantial.
Yeah. And I really love the fact that you pointed it out, that it's all about character, because the
Hmm.
character carries over to academia, to the business, and to your whole life as a person. What was the defining character that you learned in your 30s?
Well, I didn't learn it. I had that character already. I'm a very obsessive individual. I was looking, when I was doing my studies, I was looking at at patterns, demographic patterns in particular, and correlate them and so forth. So I just constantly looking at how to improve it. How can you make it better? Just thinking, thinking, thinking. It's the same kind of habit of mind. If you're very unconventional and you just keep on working at something and saying, how can I make it better? How can I make it fit? You gradually change your ideas. I'm still changing my ideas. I've made a major change in my research focus just in the last year. I didn't understand properly the importance of dopamine receptors, for example, until about a year ago. And I've been reading stuff because I read probably a couple of books a week. And I was reading stuff and I said, this explains that. So I'm still changing. I'm still making progress all my life. It's that obsessive desire to improve, to do better. That's what I always see. People ask me how you succeed as a franchisee, and that's an area where I'm obviously very interested in. I said there's two things. You've got to have a passion for customer service at an emotional level, and you've got to be relentlessly focused on how to improve. Everything you do, you've got to say, how can I do it better? It's not the big decisions. People think, I'm just mowing lawns. Why don't I franchise and suddenly I'm a millionaire? It's nothing like that. It's thousands of little decisions every day of my life. And I'm including holidays, and I'm including Christmas Day, and I'm including weekends. I'm asking myself the question, how can I do it better? That's the key. And as you say, it's character. I find character is more important than anything. If you're looking for an employee or anybody, qualification I don't care about. Experience, sometimes you need it. But basically, I'm looking for character.
What character is it, do you think, that makes a successful franchisee or business person or a person overall?
It's that habit of looking internally and saying, how can I improve? See, take a franchisee who's failing. The most common single factor behind it is this is the person who will blame everybody else. Now, they're getting complaints, for example, and they'll say, it's not my fault. Unreasonable clients, arbitrary system, bad system, I'm doing everything right. It's your system that's wrong. You've got to change. I'm not getting enough work. Like, what can you do for me? You've got to provide me with more leads. Whereas a good operator will say, okay, don't necessarily agree with everything that Jim does. He's a bit tough in some ways about, say, customer service, but what can I do? How can I stop people from ringing up and saying I didn't call them? Okay, I've got to call quicker. I've got to follow up with a text. And then they look at their business and say, how can I change it? So that's the contrast. I call them gold, bronze, lead in franchising terms. Gold is a person who is self-starter, somebody who drives all the time and says, how can I improve? What can I do? Sure, I'll talk to you about what you can do, but my focus is what I can do better. Your bronze are people who basically will listen to you. They're the people that you can coach and help, and sometimes you can help them to become gold. And then you have your leads, and the leads are the ones that won't listen because everything that goes wrong is not their fault, so they never change. Yep. When I send a letter like a breach notice to a franchisee for poor customer service, which is pretty painful, but we do it. And they come back and they say, no, it's not my fault. This is all bad. This is all wrong. And I write back to them and I say, you really are in trouble because the one thing you're not doing is you're not looking internally. Why are you getting more complaints than 95% of franchisees? It's not good enough to say they're all mistakes. Why do you get so many? Maybe not every complaint is fair, but what can you do? So you try and persuade people, and it's very frustrating. People have this sense of ego that I have to be the one who is right. And to me, one of the greatest virtues in business and in life is humility. And to look at yourself and say, what are my weaknesses? What have I done wrong? What could I improve? It's wonderful. I've been reading up on Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett at Berkshire Hathaway, and I think they're a wonderful pair. They really are amazing. I mean, Charlie's dead now, of course, but they're just an amazing pair. I love their style of business. But one of the things you noticed about Warren Buffett, this is a guy who's the world's greatest investor. And he is so humble. He talks about his mistakes. He talks about the things he's done wrong. He talks about his circle of competence. I don't go to technology because I don't understand it. This is a brilliant, amazing guy. In his 90s, still going strong. Very good precedent for the dofers who don't intend to stop working. He's quite humble.
I have Warren Buffett's painting in my office as well. I live by his ethos. As you mentioned, still live in the same house, still married to the same second wife, still
Yes,
drives the same car. And you're right,
yes,
it's not about what he accomplishes, but what can he contribute. And the fact that
yes.
he's also giving away most of his wealth to the world and not just keeping it for his kids and their kids as well is just something that is so aspiring.
Yeah, yeah, he's a
Mm,
magnificent guy. If you look at the way he does things too, he invests in his businesses. He gets
mm,
people, he thinks long term. It's a very marked contrast to that speculating
mm,
frenzy we have now. I'm just listening to a book about Enron, which
mm,
is that energy company in the US that went way, way down. And you can just feel that it's so opposite. It's all speculation. It's all derivatives. It's all fancy things. It's all pushing the share price up. Tricky
mm,
things.
mm.
What Berkshire Hathaway does is so basic. Have good people running good businesses, looking for the long term. Managers who
Yep.
think like owners,
Mm.
who can afford to put the research in, will do what's right, and they just stand by them. It's an amazing contrast.
Yep. That is awesome. So, do you think that those qualities that you look for in your franchisees, the bronze and the gold, do you think they're coachable?
Yes, absolutely they are. We think we've created more millionaires than any company in the history of Australia because the person can come in. You know, a guy like Tony Cale, this is a high school dropout who drops out of school in year 10. I mean, by the standards of the world, a complete failure. Went to work for McDonald's, which is a great place to start. My youngest son is actually working at McDonald's. I'm thoroughly in favor. And then in his early 20s, he buys a lawn mowing franchise. And that's about a 25,000 investment, which is pretty decent for somebody of that age. And he built this business. At his peak, he was turning over close to $1 million a year. He's now one of our top franchisors. He's running the whole mowing division. He's still in his early 30s. He's a multi-millionaire, and he's an amazingly great guy.
Wow.
And it's just character. But
Yep.
how do you even pick that? I don't remember him from training. I remember when I got to know what he was doing. But
Yep.
I know at least 20 franchisees who are turning over $1 million a year, and then probably a lot more that I don't even hear about.
Yep. But that's 20 out of the 5,500 that you have, though. Do you think that it's more nature or more nurture? Or it depends on how
It's
open the person is?
it's character.
Yeah.
I think character is built. I think character comes from the way you live your life. I mean, it does depend on your childhood and so forth and your parents and so forth, but I think it's basically character. People are genetically quite similar.
Yeah.
Jane, if you look at that, there's less variation genetically in the whole human race than there is in chimpanzees living in a few hundred kilometers of equatorial rainforest. We are very, very similar genetically. Where we differ is epigenetically, which is the influence of the environment on our genes, which is also the influence of what happens to our parents. That gets carried down as well.
Mm.
The character is everything. People are so hung up on intelligence too. They are so obsessed. The best estimate is that if you're looking at an explanation for success, intelligence gets you about 4%. The overwhelming majority of the rest is character.
Mm. That's awesome. Which leads us to biohistory. Can you tell us a little bit more about your work?
Basically, I, I, I've been fascinated since I was 14 years old. Somebody gave me a copy of the Peloponnesian Wars by Thucydides, and I became really obsessed with the rise and fall of civilization. So, as a very nerdy teenager, I was reading lots of books about the Roman Empire, all kinds of things, just trying to work things out. As I went through I started off studying sociology, which I thought what I discovered was a total garbage, and so does critical history. Well, it's very ideological and very unscientific.
Okay. Okay.
It's just the worst piece of crap you could possibly imagine. Sociology. At least history is dealing with real things instead of just theories. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I started looking at it, and I was interested in demography. I was interested in patterns of birth rate and death rate and
Mm.
so forth. That was one of
Mm.
my great interests, and trying to look at the correlations that you get. And there's very, very interesting correlations. So I was studying these and trying to understand history, and then when I sort of get bored with just reading history all the time, so I started reading cross-cultural anthropology, feeling very guilty, thinking I'm wasting my time. But then I started looking, I said, hey, there's similarities here. And then I started going into biology and looking at things, and later I'm looking at the social behavior of monkeys and apes and so forth. And wow, there's correspondences here. There's things that fit. So you're just looking all over the place at different fields of knowledge and putting them together and coming up with this idea. What I eventually came to the conclusion is that what creates civilization is character. That won't surprise you after I've just told you. Everything, people think it's all to do with politics and economics and ideas and everything else. So the fundamental explanation for how people live such a way is character. And what people have developed over thousands of years of cultural evolution is a system of beliefs and behavior, which is basically bound up in religions, which actually fool the body into thinking that we're hungry. And that sounds weird, but the kind of behavior you find in civilization is very typical of the kind of behavior you find in food-limited species, such as gibbons living in a Southeast Asian rainforest. And a lot of the things like nuclear monogamous families and being very hardworking. Gibbons are very hardworking because they're always patrolling their territory and intensive care of the young and strong pair bonds and so forth. That's very much food-limited behavior. So we have these social technologies, these cultural technologies, which we call religions, which actually help to create a certain kind of character that makes it possible to have wealthy civilizations with large political units. The trouble we've got is that when you become wealthy enough and commercially obsessed enough, this breaks down. And that's what's happening in the present age. And that's why the birth rate is crumbling. Fertility is just going through the floor. People are not having children as much anymore. We're not even close to replacement level. And a lot of other changes too, I believe, is the same thing. The rise in deaths of despair, drug addiction, declining in the work ethic, and so forth. You can see it very clearly in studies of character. If you ask people questions, like the general social survey that's been done for the last 50-something years, you look at the differences in attitudes of people back in the 70s, young people, compared to now. They're very, very different. They were much more concerned in those days with family, with a meaningful work. These days, much, much more, it's about leisure, it's about wealth, it's about status, but not the work to achieve it. You can see the change in character taking place, and it's disastrous and it's destroying us. And we've got to reverse it. And the key message from my research is that you actually can reverse it. We're working on treatments that will actually take us back.
I think you mentioned on a different podcast that the treatment that you're working on will work something like a vaccine. Is that right?
There's different ways of doing it. We're actually investigating a whole lot of different things. We're using pheromone to some extent. We're trying that. It does work to a certain extent with rats. If you have rats that are food restricted and you give their bedding to other rats, they activate as if they're food restricted. So pheromones is a possibility. There's drugs of various kinds. Some of the weight loss drugs, like semaglutide, those kinds of things, actually do seem to have this kind of effect. You find, for example, people not only lose weight, but they lose interest in smoking and drugs and so forth. So they seem to be having this effect, and they need to be tweaked a lot, but potentially they're there. The other way of doing it is to use a system like CRISPR, which is where you go directly into the genes and you make specified changes. I don't know if understand what CRISPR is, but it's a way of being very detailed. It's usually used to make genetic changes. So you go into the gene and you target an area, and then you cut the gene like that, and then you stick something else in, and that changes the genes. We're not interested in it from that point of view. We're interested in the epigenetic changes, because what happens is that there's a whole lot of, in any gene, there's a whole lot of places that the gene can be sort of blocked. They've got things like methyl groups that sit there and they change character. Well, if you can actually know what to do, what changes to make, and we've got a pretty good idea now from studies with rats. Rats and humans are much the same with these things. You can actually go in and make very precise changes. So there's different ways of doing it.
How would the rise and fall of a nation correlate with birth rates, Jim?
It's the same change in character. If you are, let's say, if you're a gibbon living in a rainforest where food is very restricted. You've got to defend your territory. You've got to spend a lot of time caring for your young. If you don't do that, they will not survive. So you're very interested in them. You want to spend time with them. You want to spend time with your mate. It's an emotional driver. Now, if you are a baboon, for example, living in an open savanna where food is generally plentiful, they're not very interested in kids at all. The mother she'll have sex as soon as she can after the age of puberty. She'll have a baby. She'll look after the baby when it's nursing, and then out you go. The fathers pay no care at all. They have no interest. So they're not very interested in the young. Now, if you're in an environment like a baboon where it's very high death rate, you just got to breed and breed and breed and breed, and where the young is not going to starve because there's plenty of food around, that's a good way to do it. But when you get into human society where you have an attitude that says, I'm interested in sex, I'm interested in status, I'm interested in leisure, I'm interested in sociability, but not really interested in kids. The difference with us is because of contraception and abortion and the rest, we just don't have kids. So it's an attitude designed to get animals to prosper, and our ancestors as well, in a very food plentiful environment. It means you're not as interested in your offspring. Translate in the modern world, we don't tend to have children.
Talking about children, you mentioned before that you have 10 kids.
I do.
And how did you manage all that whilst growing Jim's mowing and now Jim's group and now biohistory and everything else in your life, especially when they were quite little?
Well, I'm the husband, don't forget. I'd be lying if I said I spend as much time as my wife did. So it is more on them. But
Yeah.
I've never felt a conflict. I love my kids dearly. I just do. I just enjoy spending time with them, and I've never felt it was important. There's a saying that goes, "No other success can compensate for failure in the home," which I totally believe in.
Yeah.
There's no point. What's the point of being wealthy
Yeah.
if you neglect your children, if you neglect your family? And
Yeah.
it's easy for me. I just enjoy them so much. I think the biggest thing I miss is not having little kids running around. My youngest is 16, which he's a great kid, but he's a teenager, for heaven's sake.
Yeah, they don't give you the kisses and the hugs as much as they did when they
No.
were little anymore.
Oh,
Um,
they're wonderful. They're just so joyful. Even before I was a parent, I love kids though. I just have that nature. I've got this food restricted kind of temperament, which makes me very, very, very interested in children.
how does that work? Can you tell me more?
How does it work? I have this food restricted character is very characteristic. It's very much more communally, much more people with that kind of character are more oriented towards meaning and purpose in life. I mean,
Yeah.
I enjoy business well enough and I do things with it, but I actually give away like something over 90% of my income. It's really, and I live quite simply. I just don't have those kind of material status type desires. To me, everything is about purpose. So I have that kind of a character. It comes from my upbringing. There's something very strange happened to me. I don't even know if I want to tell you. You can feel free to cut this out, okay? But what actually happened to me, I am extremely opposite to my siblings. I've got two sisters and a brother. I'm opposite in just about every way you could imagine. I am strongly religious Christian. They're all atheists. I love kids. They don't have any interest in kids at all. My brother never had any. My sister had one, and she just gave him back to his grandparents. And I had these kinds of obsessions, this drive which makes me in business and so forth. So I have a really, really, really different character to my family. Now, I believe what actually happened, something very strange. When I was an adolescent, I had no sexual outlet apart from nocturnal emissions. I just didn't, ever. I didn't even know how. I was a solitary kid. I just didn't. And from what I can understand, that actually changed me in a very basic, fundamental way. So I have this character, and everything that's happened in my life, every good thing, including my wonderful kids, all relates to that.
Hmm. Thank you for sharing. That's a very deep and profound reflection.
Well, it's something I don't say to everybody, but it's in the book actually. the
Yeah.
book that's coming out in Birth Rate Crisis, yes, because
Oh.
I think it's crucially important. Alfred Kinsey in the Kinsey Report did some stuff on that. He found that the if, he was a great believer in sexual liberation, but his statistics actually give a different story. And there's a very powerful, the strongest correlation between what you do as a teenager and your
Mm.
later success in life and education and wealth and stuff is proportion of your sex life that's in nocturnal emissions.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yes, and it is. And if you understand it, because actually what that does, it has the same kind of effect of food restriction, but
Hmm.
in a very strict, severe way. It's telling your character that you haven't got much food, so therefore you need to act in a way that's relevant to a food restricted environment, which means really being interested in children, being very monogamous. I've got a very monogamous nature. I'm crazy in love with my wife. I don't look. I mean, she is drop dead gorgeous, really. But the point of it is, I'm not remotely tempted to stray. I have that extreme monogamous temperament,
Hmm.
and everything else about me too can be explained. All my peculiarities by that very strange experience that I had. Very unusual.
Hmm. Interesting. One of the reasons why I reached out to you was because I saw your post, and in particular, the Breadwinning Mums podcast was created because I felt a sense of a feeling of being deficient because I have to provide for the family, but then in doing so, I'm not spending as much time with the kids. And your post in particular about success in business is not a good reflection of who you are. And I'm paraphrasing, if your home life is suffering. And so I'd like to talk about this a little bit more
Hmm.
intimately, if you wouldn't mind. How do you define success in your personal life?
Ultimately, success is in your children, what
Mm,
kind of people they are and what they do with their lives. And one of the
mm,
things about my kids is very different to my siblings. They all tend to be very fond of children.
mm.
My my
Well, they had a great time with you. And so that was probably an experience that they want to relive with their offspring.
Yeah, possibly so.
Yeah.
But yeah, but they and generally speaking, I've got one son who's going through some very hard times, but generally speaking, they're just good people. They're hardworking, they're decent. They're fond of kids. They're responsible. They care about others. I mean, that's to me the greatest sign of success. And I would say more than half probably of the benefit of the credit goes to my wife's rather than myself.
Yep.
But
Um,
all the same, yes. I just don't think people think I have great interest in happiness. What makes people happy? And people are very, very deluded about happiness. The most common idea and the most poisonous one is that it's all about having status. If you have the best car and the best house and the clothes and the luxury holidays and all this stuff, you'll be happy. It's actually very, it's spending money
fleeting.
on status has no effect. People win the lottery. And in 12 months' time, they're back to where they started. It doesn't have any effect at all. Money
Mm,
can be helpful if it actually helps you to have experiences,
mm,
spending time with people. That's important. Community is very important. The best thing you can do with money is to give it away to a cause that you're involved in. And that's been found by science as being the best thing to be happy.
mm,
And there are certain correlates with happiness. Community, friendship is very important. Faith is very important. Faith community gets you a much better chance. Obviously, good health and so forth, being fit, exercise, and things are very, very important. Um, but just having a sense of purpose and meaning in your life, these are all very, very strongly correlated with happiness. Having the
mm.
best car in the street, nothing. It's useless. I know,
Makes you
very
happy
good.
for a week or so, maybe.
It does. Yes, you're
Yeah.
quite right. It does.
Yeah.
And then you come down to it. It's kind
Yeah.
of like heroin or cocaine.
Yeah.
And if you have that kind of stuff, not that I've tried it, of course, you do feel pretty good for the short term.
Yeah.
But then your brain becomes accustomed to it and you need more and more and more. In a sense, status and success are a lot like cocaine, have the same effect. What they
Mm,
actually do is they give you a burst of dopamine. And if you keep on putting dopamine into your brain reacts by becoming less sensitive to dopamine. So you need more and more dopamine surges. And those dopamine surges can come from sex, especially with a variety of partner, come from junk food, come from drugs, and come from social media. All these things give this burst, but they all wreck the balance of your brain.
Mm.
Whereas if you do things like you spend useful things like work and family and faith and those kind of things, they have the opposite effect. They actually make your brain more sensitive to dopamine. So therefore you're much happier with ordinary life. And
Mm.
that's what people do when they go on drugs. They eventually they become so immune to it that they need to feel these drugs just to feel normal because their brains are so screwed up.
Yeah. Yeah, threshold is completely worked out. I'd like to quote you on one of your books, if you don't mind. You said, "No other success can compensate for failure in the home." As someone who's been divorced 3 times and married to your fourth wife, did you ever see divorce as a failure?
Yes, of course. Jane, there's got to be something wrong with somebody who's divorced 3 times. It wasn't my choice, really. I'm an extraordinarily difficult person to live with, and I can tell you, my current wife Lee. Look, we really love each other, but we've had some pretty fierce time in the past. We had some monstrous arguments and fights. So I'm not easy. I'm very socially blind. I don't understand people very well. I don't read people very well. I'm not easy at all. One of the problems I might say, I think with my first marriage, my wife just got grass is greener. She wanted to have a boyfriend, and I'm not tolerant of open marriage. I just can't cope with it emotionally or morally. The trouble is, I had 5 little kids that I was incredibly devoted to. I really, really loved those kids. And when I saw them, which is basically one day a week and during the holidays, I was so focused on them that my wife would miss out. That was a big problem. So yes, look, what Lee says about me, my current wife, she says he's got more faults than the stars in the sky. And his virtues are few, like the sun. But you say when the sun comes out, you don't see the stars.
That's beautiful. What do you
Yeah.
think?
People ask if I ever have a trouble with my success being humble, and I said no, not married to my wife. I don't. Let me know.
Um, for someone who is a self-confessed, someone who's not quite aware as you would like to be, I'd like to pose you a challenge then. What do you think is it about the fourth marriage? Outside of Lee, of course, she's an amazing woman by the sound of things, but what was it that you did? What was it about your character during this fourth marriage that has made it work?
Well, I made a lot of terrible mistakes, but I really am crazy for her. You get the first feeling of being in love. People talk about that. It's all on the film where you're so mad for somebody. Your whole body lights up to see them. You want to touch them. You just feel that sense of you. If they're away, you can't wait to see them again. You know that crazy in love feeling. Well, I've got that after 24 and a half years, and it is like passion of love, and I just adore her. And sometimes I'll go to really big extremes to win her back and so forth. And we've had troubles.
Wow. Sounds like an amazing, long enduring infatuation. But beyond that, I guess it's more than
Yes.
that. It's
It is. It is. It is surprising. Again, it's part of my
mm,
peculiar nature. I think that I have this
mm,
this
mm,
capacity. I mean, Lee is just amazing. I think the two. I don't even understand how could be so blessed. She is just the most amazing woman. She is. She is. She's beautiful. I mean, she's approaching 60, so she can't be quite as gorgeous as I see her. But she's so kind. She's so giving.
mm.
We have the family, and she just cooks for them. She loves to help people and serve people. She loves to care for people. She's just like that. She's also incredibly capable. She's running several businesses. She runs a conference center. She runs a building business. She's setting up she's helped me with gyms.
Wow.
Amazingly, amazingly wonderful mother.
Yep.
She's everybody adores her. I mean the kids all love her. It's just she's just a woman in a million. I mean,
Yep.
I don't know what I did to deserve it. I think God just decided He's got a job for me. He's going to find me the perfect woman.
Did you meet at church?
No, actually, I met her on a railway station.
Oh,
I,
wow.
well, actually, I was introduced to her by somebody who both knew. No, when she heard I was looking, she said, "I know somebody." So she introduced. It took 3 days to persuade Lee to even meet with me. And then I met on this railway station, and it wasn't love at first sight. I have to say, it took me half an hour. I, I was
Fast
sitting
enough.
across the table for her in this shopping centre and just looking at her, and she's so sparkling and vivacious and stuff. She said it was more like a job interview. I said, "Do you like children?" Because if she didn't, that would be a bit of
Oh
a
yeah,
killer.
I mean, yep, yep.
She did. She said, "Oh yeah, I love kids." And so we were married 7 weeks later. So it was
Oh wow.
unbelievably reckless. I would never ever advise anybody, including my children, ever do such a stupid thing. But I was just so crazy for her. I really, really couldn't resist her.
Yep. You struck gold by the sound of it.
Yeah, I did. I did. She was just the best.
Yeah. You spoke a lot about your faith as well. So how has your faith translated into your life or transcended through your life?
Well, it makes a lot of difference. If you understand the way Jim's group works, it's a very thoroughly Christian organization in a moral sense, not in a religious sense. We don't sort of have compulsory prayers or anything. It's just that um, I have a tripartite values, which you would have seen on the bottom of my email. Our first priority is the welfare of our franchisee. That's number one. Franchisees are first. Every single franchisee has my phone number, email address, all 5,500 of them. Contact me anytime, daytime, after hours, weekends, holidays, doesn't matter. You contact me. I'll do everything I can for you. I am obsessed with my franchisees. We're also passionate about customer service, and we sign only franchisees and franchisors we are convinced will succeed, which is the same as the first one. Because if you put somebody on who hasn't got what it takes, then they're likely to fail. So if you care about people, you won't do it. So it's now, if you look at the way of looking at things, it's servant leadership. It's Jesus washing his disciples' feet. That will be the core idea behind what we do. You're not in charge for my own benefit. I'm here to help other people. And if you know the story, people don't realize how radical that was, even in terms of first century Palestine. Washing somebody's feet was a very dirty, degrading job. The slaves and low caste people would do it. Occasionally, a very revered rabbi, his disciples would wash his feet. This is the one case that's known where the rabbi, the spiritual leader, washed the disciples' feet. That servant leadership is core to the idea. And then you've got things like the parable of the talents, the idea that God gives us abilities and they're to be used for his purposes. That's what they're for. Doesn't mean to say you have to be the greatest. I know I'm not like an Elon Musk or those, one of those people. But I have certain abilities, and God asked me to use my abilities to the best of my knowledge. I'm not competing with anybody else. I'm just saying I've got these abilities. God wants me to use them, and that includes the money I make from the business too. It's not really mine. It's his, to be spent in a way that's useful. Now, these are fundamentally Christian values to a fairly extreme degree.
Mm. How has that affected the way you parent your children?
Um, I haven't been successful with my children as far as faith is concerned, and only one of them goes to church. No, two, both church guys. And we're still working on it, but um, you've got to have children are going to be loved, but they've also got to have a certain sense of limits and of discipline. My children have a very, my children did not disobey me. Okay. And I very, very rarely used any form of physical punishment. My 16-year-old son talks about the dark room, which is the punishment. So if you don't behave, you're in the dark room. Now, actually, the dark room was the bathroom with the light on. So it's not, it's still
Okay.
some dark and horrible place with that trauma of his childhood.
Yeah.
So if my wife is having trouble getting the children to obey, she'll just call out for me, and I will come and look at them, and they'll do what they're told.
Mm.
There's very, very strict rules. With my younger children, they would have certain, I mean, swearing was completely out. You just could
Mm.
not use bad language around dad. It's just not allowed.
Mm.
One time, one of my sons, when he was a teenager, he used a word he shouldn't have. Now, the standard punishment is I get some yucky mouth stuff. You know, the things you stop biting your nails
Mm-hmm.
and you paint it on their lips.
Mm-hmm.
And then he said to me, "Oh well, 20 years ago you were having an argument, or 10 years ago having an argument with Mum, and you said this word." So I just picked it up and I just put it. It was like that, and I put it in and did his lips. Never tried swearing in front of me again.
Yeah.
So those kinds of principles, very, very. I'm not particularly protective of my children. My children have a lot of more freedom than most just to go around, and they can travel by themselves, and they go on public transport. In fact, I encourage them and I push them to do it. But other parents are more scared. So I'm not protective, but I really want them to have character. We talk
Yeah.
a lot about character and responsibility and your responsibility to other people and the need to work hard and need to help.
Mm.
Like when we have a family gathering, Aaron will get up and he'll start washing up and so forth. Those kinds of things.
Mm. Excellent. You mentioned that you will never sell gyms.
Hmm.
You're still working in the business even through your 70s. Will you be looking for a successor from within the family unit?
If there's somebody available, yes. I mean, with 10 kids, you've got a better chance than most, I suppose. I've got
Okay.
some. I've got some amazing. I've got some amazing kids, and I've got some potential in-laws too.
Oh, wow.
A
Okay.
couple of my potential son-in-laws are very, very capable. So yes, I've got hopes, and I think capable, but also ethical too.
Yeah.
Like one of my daughter's fiance is when he was an undergraduate, he set up his charity in Thailand. Just this
Mm.
is his initiative. He's just that kind of great, amazing young man, incredibly
Mm.
capable, but also very, very decent.
Yeah.
My children make very good choice in partner. I have to say that sometimes they're even better than they are because they're so.
Well, you live and you learn, you observe, right?
Yeah, yeah. My oldest daughter is married to. Has just got this little girl who's just over 1 year old now. She's the most beautiful kid you could imagine.
Oh, your
Actually,
first grandchild or?
number six, I think.
Oh, number six. Wow.
Yeah. Okay. Well, with 10 kids, you can have a few, aren't you? But the
Yeah.
point of it is, her husband is he's just the greatest guy, Marcus.
Yeah.
He's a teacher. He's got a PhD, and he's a high school teacher, and he's just a really lovely, decent man, caring husband, caring father.
Mm.
He's a dedicated teacher. He's just the kind of thing you'd be proud to have in the family. Love Marcus. We're going to see him on
Yeah.
Wednesday night. We will have a sort of family gathering. We get together and get Uber Eats and stuff, and a bit of a chat and catch up with. Yeah.
Yeah. One of your first, well, significant failure when you were 30 was when you've decided, and this was, you admitted on a podcast, you mentioned that you got a little bit lazy. You took the back seat off and you paid someone else to do the work.
Mm.
Do you think that this hard lesson in life went on to keep you working even through your 70s? Are you finding it hard to then let go of the business?
I don't want to let go of my business because it's a great buzz. I love doing it, and I've got terrible failures. I'm very bad on the back end stuff, like the finances and stuff. Lee is really great in that area, so we kind of complement each other. I'm the
Mm.
ideas person, the initiative, the passion, the ideals. That's my strength.
Mm.
But I'm fairly good at what I do still, from all accounts. If I get to the stage where I'm not being helpful to the business, then I should move aside. But at the moment, I'm actually, I think, quite effective. I know I'm a lot better at business than I was 20 years ago. I just know
Mm.
so much more. So many mistakes I've made over the years, and I think, well, okay, well, that's a benefit. I've blown so much money and so much opportunity by doing wrong things, mostly by going into things I don't understand. So I'm starting to understand what my limits are and what my strengths are. So yeah, I think I'll go another 20 years. But people like Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett and
Yeah.
and um,
Yeah.
those kind of guys, Rupert Murdoch too.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say he's got the character on the same level as those two, but they're all working into their 90s. So why
Yeah.
not?
I
And
love
I'm
it.
very fit. I run. I run and weight lift and have cold showers and so forth. So I'm
Oh,
I'm super
wow.
healthy. Yeah.
Yeah. How long do you run for usually?
half an hour.
Okay,
I do
nice.
weightlifting, half an hour, weights and stuff, push-ups, and
Yep.
I also walk quite a lot too. I probably walk about total of 10,000 paces a day on average.
Well, your gym of Jim's mowing, of course you're extremely fit.
Yeah, I like gardening too. I
Yeah,
really love it. I've got a small farm. I go out there at the weekends, and I got these big, vast areas of potatoes and fruit trees and all kinds of things. But I just enjoy gardening. So I'm
yeah,
up there doing that, and quite often listening to talking books at the same time. So keeping your
yeah,
mind active and your body active is really important.
yeah. You mentioned on a book, you said that life falls short for me if I don't have some daily contact with grass and trees. I actually recently got into trail running where I spend a lot of time in the nature as well. And it really resonated with me when I read it because I do feel a lot better when I'm out in the nature. But could you tell us a little bit more about your experience, seeing that you are in touch with the nature for most of your life?
Well, that's why I was a gardener, basically.
Yeah.
Honestly, speaking, why did we do that as a job? Because to me, it's great being outside. That's why I do it as a hobby now that I don't really need to for make a living anymore. It's just fun. But there's a thing called biophilia. It's well known. Again, this comes to happiness. People think, if I have lots of, wine and good food and expensive stuff, I'll be happy. It's actually pretty badly related. Whereas being in contact with nature, also just being outside,
Mm-hmm.
just the full light of day. One of the best things you can do for your mood is to actually go out every day, especially early in the day, and just be exposed to sunlight or
Mm.
to the sky. And obviously, if there's nature around, it's even better. So yeah, so actually, some people can they can actually go running in a group in like a park. Well, you're actually
Yeah.
hitting three really strong triggers for happiness.
Mm.
One is open air, one is exercise, one is nature, and the other is community.
Yep.
These are all very powerful drivers of happiness.
Yep.
And the interesting thing is, if you look at the teachings of religion, particularly in my case, Christianity, they very much align with the kinds of things that make you happy, which is
Mm.
being part of a community, being part of a group, being singing in church, this kind of stuff too.
Mm. And be of service, going back to that servant leadership point that you made. It's not
Yes.
just about us individually, but us, the whole community.
Yeah. We've become a very sad people, Jane. The levels of death and despair, the suicide rates are going up, drug addiction, alcohol problems, all kinds of things, mental illness, depression, all things are just going in a really bad direction. We're becoming lonely, we're miserable and lonely. This whole selfishness epidemic that's taking place is awful. It really is so bad. People think that that's how you become happy, by doing the worst advice you can possibly ever take is, if it feels good, do it. No, if it feels right, do it. That's what you should be doing with your life. And that's what a meaningful, useful, happy life is about. It's not about just indulging yourself. It's about thinking, what's my purpose? What's my function?
Mm.
And that can be very joyful. Being running outside can be a joyful experience, but it's also a good one. Spending time with your family, with your children, with your partner, with your community, serving other people. That's all they're wonderful things, but you've got to consciously say this. And I can always be lazy. One of the things that I do, every day I have my business, and there's certain things I have to do. Like when a franchisee approaches me for advice, something, I respond to them. That's top priority. But it's easy just to get caught up with doing the reactive things. What I've also got to do is the proactive stuff, the things that are important but not urgent. At the moment, for the last couple of years, it's been this book, Birth Rate Crisis, which I'm working on every day. And I have a rule that every day I must do some work on it. It must be a minimum of 5 minutes. Now, when I get into it, it's always more than that. But quite often I don't really feel like it. I have to push myself and say, no, what is your responsibility? What is your duty? And I know if I do it, I'll feel better. But you can still be very lazy. So it's always, the secret is doing the things that you should do compared with things that you immediately feel like doing. Like, I'd like to lie in bed, yes, but I need to get up and go for a run. Or I'd like to veg out and watch TV or social media or whatever you're doing. But no, I should be actually making contact with somebody and building friendships and so forth. The
Mm.
stuff that's worthwhile.
Yeah, that is awesome. So what is life like for you now, Jim?
Well, it's wonderful. I'm a spectacularly lucky, fortunate person. I have this amazing wife. I have these great kids. I just saw a whole bunch of them. I see them quite often. I have an incredibly meaningful job where I can really make a difference to people. And sometimes you make very tough decisions. It's not always niceness. Sometimes I have to come down very hard on people about things like customer service or people not looking after franchisees right. So that's tough. But I have an amazingly meaningful job where I can see I'm helping people a great deal. I have good friends. I have my project, my research project, which is an enormous source of meaning to me. It's something that could change the world in a very positive way. I mean, vastly. I don't know if it will or not. People will listen. I hope so. But it's a really amazing, wonderful life. I doubt that there's a happier person on the face of the planet.
That's awesome. As someone who is living a fulfilling, in many dimension, and purpose-driven life, what advice could you give to the youngest, maybe the 18-year-old, the 19-year-old men who are finding life a little bit tough and a little bit lost in terms of what their purpose in life would be? How could a young person find their purpose in life?
um, Speaking practically as well as theologically, the best thing you can do is find a community of faith. That is honestly the best way to do it. These are communities, these are belief systems that are being tested over thousands of years, developed over 1,000 years. Now, somebody who's a believer like me, it's also the creator. The Bible to me is the creator's manual. And if you follow that, that's a good life. So I'd say one simple answer is find a faith community and become part of that as far as you can. And you will tend to find that you'll find God through that. You don't have to be a believer to go there. You just have to see the effects and see how it works. And God will find you through that, which is how it happened to me when I was 28 years old. So I think that's the single most important thing. And I just think focus on what matters. Focus on what's worthwhile. What is your life for? Find a purpose. Religion is great for that, but even beyond that, what is your purpose? Find a job that's meaningful. It doesn't have to be something like, serving the poor. It can be like being a gardener, for heaven's sake, but at least do that with some sense of pride and you're serving the community and you're helping people and stuff. I used to get a lot of satisfaction out of that too. When you're a gardening contractor, sometimes you're the only person that an old client might see all week. So there's value in doing something that's worthwhile, putting your heart and your soul into your work. Because let's face it, we spend a lot of our time working. And I think put that ahead of, making a lot of money. I'd see they found they look at people in terms of when they leave university, they looked at what their aims were. And there were certain people who aimed to be wealthy and to be successful and have high status. And there's others who aim to have lives of purpose and meaning and helpful to others. And what they found following them up is that both actually had achieved that to a large extent. The people who wanted the wealth and the status tended to have more status and wealth. And there were those who wanted a life of meaning tended to have that. But guess what? The people who wanted the life of meaning actually were a lot happier. So I think don't do what's easy. And obviously the basic things, exercise. There are wonderful books actually. If you look at my website, jimpenman.com.au, there's a book list there. There's a whole lot of books about living, and things like Atomic Habits and Tiny Habits. A lot of books about habits and about how you live a good life. Do the things that are difficult but that are right, and overcome if it feels good, do it type of stuff. I mean, stuff like alcohol and sex outside of marriage and with multiple people and pornography and drugs and all that kind of stuff. It's really, really bad stuff. It gives you a good feeling in the immediate and it makes you feel far worse overall. So you've got to focus on meaning, on purpose. Faith is great. but meaning, doing something with your life that makes sense, that you'll look back and say, wow, that was a life well lived. I've achieved something, not just piling up money in the bank. I honestly, it's a funny thing, I often think this. People talk to me because I'm successful. I mean, if I was just the ordinary guy mowing lawns, nobody want to speak to me. They speak to me because I'm successful. But my lesson is really material success is not all it's cracked up to be. It's great for me because I can do things. I can do amazing things I could not possibly do otherwise. And certainly, I can look after but I don't need the kind of income I have to look after my family, that's for sure. It's not even good for them. My kids were not brought up with money, that's for sure. They knew at some theoretical level that the father was quite rich, but they said, where's the mansion? Where's the yacht? Where's all this stuff you're supposed to have when you're rich? No sign of it.
Mm. Have you had that conversation with your kids that you're giving away most of your wealth?
Oh yeah, they've done that forever. They
Okay,
do
all right.
quite well. I give them better help with when they have kids and with buying a house, this kind of stuff. That's all. It's all completely clear. My kids are fine with it, actually. They're great people. Like I said, not one of them is greedy. I've never ever had anybody suggest that I should do something different. Not once, not ever, not with any of the 10 of them.
Mm. Excellent. For working parents who are juggling work and lives, and I guess I'm taking you back to the, early days of rearing kids nowadays. If there was one thing that you could share with young parents right now, with how they could successfully juggle work and lives outside of, the outsourcing most of it to your life, what would that be, Jim?
Okay, one very important thing is don't try too hard. You should
Mm.
love your kids. There's a wonderful book called Selfish Reason to Have More Kids, which talks about parenting. People spend too much time protecting their kids against imaginary dangers. We have this fear of them being abducted and so forth. Well, actually, what people should realize is that if you put a child in the bedroom with some sort of smart advice, there are 100 times more of danger there than they would be wandering through the streets. So don't overprotect your kids. Let them go outside. Let them get bumped and bruised and play with other kids as much as you possibly can in the community. The way they do it in places like Israel, which is a very healthy attitude towards child rearing. Little kids like primary school kids walk to school by themselves. We should be a lot less protective. What we should be doing is teaching them values, principles of behavior, saying this is what you should do. You need to help. And helping with chores is really important, not to be paid for, just to do it, because that's your responsibility to the family. So you teach them sound values. You have very strict guidelines, which is quite hard when they get to be teenagers. The younger ones just adore you anyway, and they really want to please you. After that, it gets to be difficult. I don't know what your kids are, but you get to that stage, you'll see the difference very clearly. And then once they get into their 20s and they settle down, they're wonderful again. But they're all great. But I think people also spend too much time obsessing about their children being successful. I don't think that's not a powerful thing at all. I think the best thing you can ever do is let your kids get a job. Like I've really, Aaron's working for McDonald's, I told you, and that's great. I've been strongly in favour. And my kids have always had jobs. They've always had their own money. They get a small allowance. Apart from that, they earn their money, and they're basically pretty good at saving and investing. I don't give them a lot, especially considering how rich I am. I just don't. It's not good for them. And that's one of the reasons I would not want to live rich life, because it's so destructive of character. So you just want to encourage them and talk to them and be with them. I'm a busy-ish man, but I drive my son to school and pick him up. Okay, so I probably spend about 3 hours a week chatting with Aaron about all kinds of things. He's just an amazing kid. He's very interested got an amazing mind. Everybody loves him, actually. He's just got an amazing mind where he's curious and interesting, and he comes up with ideas, and he has these wild questions. Why don't we do this or that? And he's just incredible kid. So it's no burden. But I do spend several hours a week carting him around, which I suppose I can get Uber to or someone else. But, that's important stuff. To me, it's not, you don't put life into work versus non-work. You put life into what's worthwhile and what's not worthwhile. And that's the key distinction. Do the stuff that's worthwhile. Children are worthwhile. Church involvement is worthwhile for me. Exercise is worthwhile. Proper diet is worthwhile. There's other things too I do, like play computer games, which are not so worthwhile. I
Oh,
try not to do too much.
good for your mind, I guess. It's mental
Well,
stimulation.
yeah, I'd put a limit on it. Put it
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah.
But it's not. I'm not totally strict about everything. But reading is worthwhile. Learning about the world, getting new ideas is worthwhile, and it doesn't so much matter whether you're working or not. But it's amazing. Quite often, I just think if you do the things that are worthwhile, including things looking after your health, mental and physical, you'll actually be more effective in your work too. I don't have to work. I mean, people do say I'm a workaholic, but I'm not really. I just enjoy my work. So evenings and weekend stuff, you can find me on the computer and answering emails and stuff and phone calls and things, but it's not a burden to me. If a franchise has got a problem, I want to hear from them. They don't need to wait till Monday to hear from me.
Yeah. You're purpose driven. I
Yeah.
really like that statement you made. Just do what is worthwhile rather than thinking, now I'm at work, now I'm at home, now I'm doing
Mm.
chores, now I'm doing A, B, or C. But do the things that are worthwhile. And at the end of the day, I think we all know what's worthwhile and what's not.
Yeah. I
And
think a
so,
single-minded pursuit of success and wealth is a really bad way to live your life. I just don't have that.
mm,
I started having kids when I was very poor. Didn't even have a house. I was actually still in debt,
mm,
living in a rented house. You just want kids, and to me, I've never felt the conflict.
mm.
I knew it was worthwhile, and I love my kids, and it's worth doing. I just don't. People say they don't have children today because they haven't got enough money. It's not a case of money. It's a case of priorities.
Mm.
What's important to you? Is it more important to have a really nice house, a great car, and overseas holidays, and this and this and that, or is it important to have children to love and care for? I mean, what's important?
Mm. I'd like to go back to that young Jim then, the one who is about to go to boarding school. Was it boarding school or private school that you went to?
Just school. We went to private schools, yeah.
Yeah. Um, so that young Jim who's about to go to the first day of private school, knowing all of the wealth of knowledge, all of the experiences, all of the purpose-driven life that you've lived now, if you could give that young Jim just one piece of advice, what would that be?
There's more to this God business than you're thinking currently.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
this is powerful stuff.
Yeah.
Um, I'd love to give them some clues as to the research because it took me a long, long time, decades, to figure these things out. I'd love to go back and give some advice about some of these things. That's for sure. But
Mm,
that's more the ideas. But just the life of a life of purpose and of meaning and life of faith is the best form of that.
yeah.
And I don't draw a distinction. What's meaningful to me is what God wants me to do with my life.
Mm. Was that an abrupt transition when you found God?
Yeah, very, very, very abrupt.
It
I,
was
I
during
was,
a camp, I think you mentioned.
yeah. Well, actually, what happened was that I was fairly vocally anti-Christian in some sense. I remember going to a Billy Graham crusade and making fun of people going down to the front, which is pretty nasty when you think about it. But I just did. I had it with a friend, and we were just being stupid young hooligans, whatever. But then I kind of attracted to them. Every time a missionaries would come to the door, like the Mormons or anybody else, I would just talk to them. I was interested. And then when I was I was 28 years old, and I was wandering through the Union Building uh, on their orientation day, and there was a group of young Christian kids sitting there in their booth. And I just got chatting to them and I liked them. And they invited me to go along on this retreat. And the first morning of the retreat, we had this quiet time where people would pray and read the Bible and so forth. And I wasn't going to pray because I didn't believe in God. So I just sat down and I had a textbook and a red pen, and I just wrote down what came into my mind. And I had this vivid sense God was calling me. So I sat down atheist and got up a Christian. And immediately, being me, I went full hog. Evangelistic coffee shops and improv theatre for children, all kinds of things, and Sunday school teaching and a lot to do with kids. But yeah,
Wow.
I completely changed.
How did it change you internally? How did you feel?
A lot happier.
Hmm.
it was amazing. It was like it's like you've been in the desert and you've suddenly broken through the promised land. I was thinking of the children of Israel coming out of the desert into Canaan. That kind of feeling. It was incredibly joyful.
Yeah.
I I don't know. I mean, it's such a joyful thing. I mean, you're in church sometimes, and you just feel such a sense of joy and meaning and fulfillment that it's very hard to be. I get very weepy at times. My wife was always pointing out she embarrasses me by doing that, but you get very emotional. It's
Mm.
just an incredibly great feeling to be part of that sort of faith community. It's a
Mm.
sense of closeness and a sense of purpose and a sense of meaning.
Wholeness.
Wholeness, yeah, yeah. It's just great. I don't know if people who take cocaine get the same feeling of joy as I do, but if they do, I can sort of understand why they do it. That's death. That
Mm.
destroys character. Whereas what faith builds character, builds life. It builds everything that's
Mm.
good in life. It's just the opposite. It's a very joyful experience for me. I go to a very lively church. It's got this. We have about 1,000 people in the typical service, and there's multiple services, so it's very
Oh, wow.
very noisy.
Yeah.
I get up and
Yeah.
wave your arms around this kind of stuff too. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you've got your community.
Yeah. I mean, you've got friends too. We sit with them in church because it's such a big church. You don't know everybody there, but then we usually go out and have lunch with them afterwards and stuff. And we have what's called a life group where we meet. We're meeting tonight actually at one of the places where we meet
Mm.
together, have a meal and talk about things and pray together and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, it's important. It's one of the predictor of long life, right? Community and the
Yes.
richness of your social life.
Yeah. Well, basically, if I go through the things you do on Google about living a long life, you just do every question you can ask me. Yeah, you're going to live longer, 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 longer. Everything:
Yeah.
health, community,
Yeah.
faith, sense of purpose,
Mm.
lively mind, interested in things, still working, still loving your job. All these things are very, very strong predictors of proper weight. All these things are very strong predictors of long life. Not smoking, not drinking, no drugs,
Mm.
nothing like that.
Mm. Well, Jim, if I find myself 72 and living half of the fulfillment and purpose that you have now and the richness of your social life, I would count myself lucky indeed. Just one
Yeah.
last question that I ask most guests in the show. What is your Alpha Dad song? So, if you are extremely busy at work, your home life is quite hectic as well, your franchisees are calling you and you don't feel well, what one song do you play on the back of your mental mind to make it through the week or through the month?
Well, I don't listen to a lot of music because when I'm in my car or out gardening, I'm listening to talking books. So most of the
Ah,
music I hear is Christian music.
nice.
That's an answer. It'll be some sort of a Christian song. There's a song I love called God's Own Fool, which is really, really wonderful.
Ah, beautiful.
Um, but yeah, mostly Christian music, I suppose. Because to me, I mean, I love a good tune, but I also love something that's got meaning in the words to it.
Mm,
But you have different and sometimes it's just listening to one of my favorite songs is actually He Would Valiant Be from Pilgrim's Progress.
mm,
It's an old fashioned hymn. We used to hear it at school,
mm,
and it was sort of written in the 17th century by John Bunyan, who was a um, see a very ordinary man, and he wrote this wonderful book called Pilgrim's Progress, which is about an analogy of the Christian life. And this is a song about he who would valiant be, let him come hither, one who will constant be, come wind, come weather. There's no discouragement, will make him once relent his first avowed intent to be a pilgrim. So
beautiful.
I love that. I love that song. That's very, very meaningful to me because it's that sense of struggle that you always life is a battle to overcome your worst nature. I
Mm,
don't find it easy to live a good life. It's
mm,
not. There's so much laziness and weakness in all of us. there's so much sin in all of us. It's easy to give way. You've got to always be struggling. And I think the wonderful thing about Pilgrim's Progress, if you haven't read it, you should. It's an amazing book, actually. That's amazingly well, considering it's 4 centuries old. But that sense of it's a struggle. Those who beset him round with dismal stories do but themselves confound his strength the more is. So you don't listen to what people say. You do what's right. And it's hard. And sometimes it's very difficult and you don't feel like doing it, but you've got to do what's right. And life shouldn't be. One thing that when I was young, Malcolm Fraser was the Prime Minister. And I don't say he was a spectacularly good Prime Minister in so many ways, but one thing he said I really loved, he said life wasn't meant to be easy. And I absolutely believe in that. Life wasn't meant to be easy. If your life is easy, then you're not really living it very well. Life should be a challenge. Life should be a difficult. Life should be a struggle against all the things that we need to do better. I need to be a better person. I need to be a kinder person. I look at my wife, who is the most incredibly generous, giving person, and I would try and learn from her because she's a far better person than I am. So how can I be more like Lee? So struggle. And that's what life is about. It's about making the hard decisions, not the easy ones, but the great decisions.
Live a life of purpose. Do things that are worthwhile. Life is hard. It's not meant to be easy. And it's part of the feature, actually, not a bug.
Yes, you're absolutely right. If it's easy, it's not good. If you're finding life is easy, it's because you're not trying hard enough. Because I've got a lot to do in the next 20 years. I'm very concerned about my health too, because I've got so much to do. I've got probably 20 years left, and there's just so much that needs to be done. And that's a mission. Yeah. And I can't afford to be slacking off.
That's awesome. Hey, Jim, thank you so much for giving us some of your time. I think we have a lot to learn from you, and you've raised the bar extremely high, not just in business, but also in personal fulfillment, in terms of being service for others as well, and also how to be a good parent. So thank you so much for showing us a lot of your insights and a lot of your wisdom today.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I'll see you next time.
Okay.
This episode of the Breadwinning Mums was produced by me, Jane Lim, and our theme music was produced by Sam McNally. We recorded this episode on the lens of Dark people who have passed their parenting story for generations. We pay our respects to their elders past and present, and thank them for caring for country. Connect with us through LinkedIn or Instagram at Breadwinning Mums. Until next time.